with your permission, I travel a lot, and I actually spend very little time in the Americas. So I'd like to get a feel for the audience, if you don't mind. With your permission, okay, how many people are unsure of whether sustainability is relevant for project management? How many people are unsure? You're not really quite sure, do we care, should we care? All right. How many people definitely think, yes, sustainability is really, oh, I love you folks, thank you. And just for giggles, is anyone, no, I do not think that sustainability has any place in project management. Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, this is gonna be a lot easier than I thought. All right, 30 plus years, serial entrepreneur. One of the things I always say, I am blessed and cursed that I've never had a boss. Always own my own companies, consulting, training. Mentioned the volunteer work that I've been doing. Convener for 21502 is so cool. So it's replacing 21500. The reason why it's cool, and have any of you worked on standards development? It's a few of you. Okay, it's a special endeavor. The privilege of it is, at least within my working group, there's 100+ subject matter experts from around the world who have completely different perspectives of what the heck project management is. I mean, Don, I think this morning you had some definitions for project and program. We're still debating what the definition of a project is, all right? But it's really interesting, you know, just seeing the different perspectives based on country, language, industry. It's a lot of fun. UN, okay, carrying on. One of the reasons why I wanted to show this slide, it's a little bit goofy. So these are my, I guess, areas of specialty. So I have, over the years, earned these designations. The only reason I'm pointing this out is just to demonstrate that I have an awareness of the different interpretations in these areas. But more importantly, you take all that gunk in, all right, I honestly believe that all of that stuff, okay, sustainability is a brilliant catalyst for all of it. I honestly and truly believe that. That was a fun picture from a number of years ago showing the difference of where we may or may not be going in terms of the world and sustainability, okay? All right, so my intent is to go through these points. My intent is more, and I've got a lot of slides, I overshare. My intent is to show different perspectives, okay? Mainly so that we can start approaching projects, the organizations, our sponsors, possibly in a slightly different way to change the dialogue, to change the debates around projects and sustainability. So just some thoughts on project management. What is sustainability? Why we should care. Risk management, mentioned that I'm secretary for TC 262 risk management, is really important with sustainability, I believe, and I'll go through that. And what can we, or for those of us who are project managers or lead project managers, what can we do to help make things better? So I've traveled to, I don't know, 50, 60-ish countries around the world. One of the things you learn very quickly, one, everyone has a very different perception of what the heck sustainability is, all right? Based on country, language, culture, region, industry. The other thing is they prioritize sustainability very differently, and we'll discuss some of that as well, which is also an important consideration. Again, also based on country, culture, industry, region. Another point that I'll be making, and I'm specifically making this for Canadians and Canadian organizations. In traveling around the world, everyone loves Canadians, all right? Well respected, we're well known, but everyone expects already that we are incredibly sustainable. They just presume that we are, but we're lousy at marketing and leveraging and positioning this. So we'll be discussing some suggestions both for the projects and the organizations for taking advantage of that, all right? We have such incredible advantages, and we're just not taking advantage of it. One of the comments is leaving money on the table. All right. Some people learn by reading, some by hearing. I'm a visual person. Sylvie, the last presentation that you did, you were commenting on methods and models. I love this phrase. All models are wrong, some are useful. And I would argue with Sylvie that methods are the same thing. There are a lot of pictures here. It's just to help with the dialogue. So we're talking apples to apples, not apples to coconuts. All right. I love this quote. I'll just give you a second to read it. The observation here is that we need to be multidisciplinary, all right, to consider different perspectives and observations, not to be locked onto one thing. Obviously, for some people, yes, that is your core competency, great, whatever. But in project management, and sustainability specifically, you want to be multidisciplinary. I'm just going to go through these really quickly, but I think it's neat for project managers to keep this in mind. So, being the best in the world. Okay. Many of us there, some of us maybe here, getting there, incredibly difficult, right? I think we can generally agree with that. So most of us are in the blue. We can quickly get to the green, but at that point, higher up, that's tough. However, if you combine multiple skills, and I'm hoping that you'll be including sustainability in that, all right? It gets a lot easier to be a world leader in these things. And there is an observation, you don't want these skills too close together. You would like some separation between them. So for giggles, if you take a number of skills, competencies, and by the way, you don't have to be an expert. You can be okay, you can be average, but combining all of those, that makes for a competitive advantage. Another perspective on that. Guess who I got that idea from? Scott Adams. We saw a graphic earlier today. So this is a guy, and his comment is, I'm not that much of a comedian, I'm not that great a drawer, I'm not that good in business, but with all of these things, all right, I'm not worth $75 million. So it's just an observation. We all perceive differently. We've all heard the first line, perception is reality, okay? And perception, particularly in sustainability, is a big deal. Identification, interpretation. And the issue, and we see this a lot these days, perception is fact. Yeah. All right, this is what we're going to go through quickly. How many people have seen this a while ago? Yes. All right. So, who sees black and blue? Hands up. Who sees black and blue? Okay. How many see white and gold? Okay. A lot more than one than the other, but there is a difference. We visually perceive differently. Now, I'm going to try the next one, and hopefully this will work. Oop, no, wrong one. Some more visual perceptions, 6'9", 4'3", old lady, young lady, whatever. So we see things differently, all right? All right, let's see if this works. Can you hear it? Laurel. All right. Who hears Yanni? Thank you. Who hears Laurel? We all heard the exact same thing, but we interpreted it differently. Speech, misunderstanding. You probably can't read this. What the British say, with all due respect, what the British mean, I think you're wrong. What the Dutch understand, he is listening to me. Having been in Seoul several weeks ago for Working Group 9, 21502, oh yeah, we hear things differently. Cultural differences, I'm going to quickly zing through this. Great book if you're dealing with different cultures, traveling a lot. But you can see a lot of these where people react, interpret, respond differently. We all know Greta? Now, nowhere else in the world have I seen as much hostility for this poor gal than in the Americas. But here's a perspective. Where is she from? Direct negative feedback. Again, having been in Seoul dealing with the Scandinavians, if they don't agree with you, same as the Dutch, all right? They will tell you. We're not used to that. You know, what is it, the sandwich? You know, nice, the issue, nice, not there, okay? Political differences. I don't want to get too into detail on this, but the liberal left, the conservative right. Keeping in mind, this is a perspective, a spectrum, okay? This is also important though for projects because the sponsor might be right, the operations might be left, all right? But just keeping these perspectives in mind, how we perceive, interpret, respond to things. Yeah, new and novel, order and security. Outgroups as potential friends, outgroups as threats. Openness to change, conformity, traditional values. Entrepreneurial, open to change, tradition and process focus. Here's the point. And we'll deal with this on another slide in a second. Neither side is wrong, all right? Yes, their values, their perspectives. Neither side is wrong, all right? And it's sort of the yin and the yang. We need both of these, all right, to come up with the requirements, the solutions, and the outcomes that we need. We need both sides. You don't need just one or the other, all right? So just being aware of and how you deal and see how they interpret things. Sustainability difference. How many of you have seen this? Triple bottom line, okay? Otherwise known as people, planet, profit. Most of the time we see it exactly like this, 3 equal concentric circles. However, how would the right perceive it? Care about us, people. That's first. That's what we care about. Prosperity, environment, couldn't care less about the polar bears or butterflies or whatever else. Not saying right or wrong, just saying it's values and perspective. How would the left see it? Mother Earth, Mother Nature, first and foremost. If Mother Earth goes down, we're going down, all right? Then social, then prosperity. Okay, now, I would argue one is more right than the other, but again, these are values, these are perspectives. We can't say it's right or wrong, okay? All right, observation 3. I'm suspecting with this group, I don't need to go through this in much detail. The observation is there's a difference between scouts and warriors. I stole this from Julia Galluff. So, warrior mindset. Fight to defend your ideas, all right? They are sacrosanct. I will argue with you to the nth degree at all cost. Confirmation bias, echo chamber on steroids, all right? Again, sometimes you need that. There are times when you need that to defend things or push things through, all right? But when you're dealing in sustainability, and I would argue projects, we want to keep an open mind, see what's happening. So we want to get an accurate picture of reality. And if we realize that we're wrong, it's okay. It's okay for us to change our perspectives, and particularly in something like science or sustainability. Yeah, basic scientific method. New information comes, you reevaluate your theories, and you update the decisions, if required. Okay, so that's what we went through. So the point being, we all perceive differently, all right? And it's not right or wrong. And because we perceive it, we interpret and respond differently, all right? So we have to be sensitive when we're dealing with sustainability. All right, I'm gonna fly through this because I'm suspecting that most of you understand. So some things we'll deal with. All right. Great book and good for university students. Here's the observation. Many of these professions are going to become less and less important, all right? Because they're being replaced by artificial intelligence and robotics. Depressing, but I mean, that's taken as a given. Notice what isn't on that list. How important are these things for us? It's a people profession, right? I mean, this is what we do, all right? So on the one hand, we're kind of safe from the robotics and artificial intelligence and computers. Now, some of the technical stuff, yes, that'll get done more by technical issues. But the interpersonal stuff, that's key. How much time and resources are dedicated to change? Roughly 30% of the world's GDP is spent on projects. Okay, this is kind of a made-up number, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so $26-ish trillion, all right, is spent on change. Here's the more important thing, though. It's been increasing, as was mentioned in previous presentations. It has been increasing year over year. Okay, so one, projects are increasing and more in demand, and two, we're not going to be replaced. Okay. I haven't come up with a really good way to explain this, so please take some license with what I'm doing. Business, project management, seeing it as separate. All right. The business side, the issues they're dealing with change. What that says is, does the project have any responsibility, involvement, or influence? I would argue that we, dealing with projects, are at the coalface. We get to see the requirements. We get to talk to the people. We get to understand the different perspectives, the stakeholders, all right? We are aware of things that many, including the sponsor, are simply not, all right? We have a unique position and access to information and people and perspectives, all right? Traditional, so organizational executives dealing with the sponsor, sponsor deals with the organization. Traditionally, that's been the relationship with the project management. I would argue that in many industries and cultures, it's changing to more of a peer-to-peer, so that the project manager, I think you've probably heard the phrase fools and liars on scheduling and costing, we have an accountability accountability to ensure that the organization, the sponsor, is aware of things. Okay, so that they can make informed decisions. They may still say no, all right? But at least we, with our access to all this information, the people and what we're aware of, at least make them aware, okay? And they may decide we'll deal with it later on, but at least we've provided that information. If you get the opportunity, my biased perspective is 99 out of 100 sponsors have no idea what their job is. There's a great few-page standard, which I help work on, called the GAPS Project Sponsor Standard. It's a few pages, it's really cool, and it's easy, and it does help for them understanding. Change delivery, the standard career path, team member, team lead, project manager, major project manager, project manager, program, portfolio. I think 1% of 1% of people actually go through that. There's an argument that we in the project world, okay, have to have a fundamental understanding of these things. Risk management, obviously. Project controls, obviously. I would add asset lifecycle, value, and benefits, but those are slides later on. Master's program that we teach, and many of the students, second year, come to realize, I'm not going to be a project manager. Yeah, I'll have the degree, I'll have the master's. But there are a lot of areas where we can focus, okay? And just for giggles, cost engineer, schedule engineer, a couple of years ago, they averaged, for good ones, about £2,000, €2,000 a day. Plug out for AACE here. Just an observation. Oh, and industry, discipline, subject matter expertise. I actually didn't agree with, my perspective on this is different than what was mentioned earlier. In the UK, I find that they think that a project manager can do anything. I actually perceive that in North America, we prefer subject matter expertise in areas. That's my perspective. And just, again, some of the competencies around that. All right, I'm going to go through this in detail. Benefits. Benefits are important, and I'll explain why in a second. All right, there is a bias that those of us in the Americas, i.e. the organization, the executive, the sponsors, are very output focused. You deliver it, you throw it over the wall, you walk away, okay? Output focused. So the deliverable, I would say, asset that's produced. Now, and again, it depends on the industry and the project and what you're doing, but that output, that asset, creates a capability, okay? So the ability to do something new, all right, provide something new. That provides organizational changes and outcomes. A new operational state achieved after transition. So this is the new business as normal, okay? So you can now do something. But here's the giggle. What does the organization want? They want benefits. That is all the organization wants, all right? Because those benefits help achieve the organizational objectives. Now, there is an argument. A project manager has no business dealing with benefits. I will argue in the next few slides that we're not accountable, obviously the sponsor and the businesses, but we do have an opportunity to help out. Asset lifecycle focus. Once again, initial delivery, cost of the project, throw it over the wall, all right? Some subsequent deliveries, starting to see some benefits. We're starting to see the implementation costs and other disbenefits. Okay, fine. The point that I want to emphasize, as we're in this process, we can influence the costs, the operations and maintenance costs, the risks, okay, and the benefits. We can influence that. We could advise the organization, the sponsor, have you considered this? Maybe we can do this. Okay. Now, if you look at that as risk management, we'll deal with that in a sec. All right, threats and opportunities. I hate that definition, but it's useful in this conversation. All right. And then, of course, taking into account benefits from recycling and reuse. Okay. The business case provides the document where we evaluate the benefits. Keeping in mind, benefits are temporal. All right. It depends where you evaluate where you are on the spectrum in terms of what the benefits are that you're getting. All right. But we can influence that. We have access to the information which we can provide to the executive, and they may or may not do anything with it, but at least they know. Or they may delay it or whatever else, okay? And there's also the point, the traditional benefits, sustainability benefits. As you continue on the project or things move forward, newer and newer benefits are recognized and identified, which again helps the business case. Cradle to cradle perspective. Again, taking the big picture, okay? Not just the output. All right, the whole purpose of this presentation. Trending. There is a perspective that in the Americas we are culturally more output focused. Okay? Time, cost, scope. There is a perspective that Europe, Asia Pacific, who interpret the world in terms of strategy in decades and centuries as opposed to minutes and quarters, all right, actually take into account more of the benefits focus. The argument we are putting forward is sustainability, taking into account all these things. And I'll explain that more in a second. Okay? So, some points on project. All right. Sustainability 101. Okay, I'm going to go through this reasonably quickly. What the heck is sustainability? I'm going to give you a few definitions. And then I'm going to give you my preferred definition. So that comes from the Buntland report. So development that meets the environmental, social, and economic needs of the present. So cause no harm, okay, to the future generation. Here's another one from the ISO Guide 82. A little bit more information on that, which I think is interesting. And now the one that I like. This comes from a blog post that I did, which I defined as a mercenary perspective on sustainability. I would argue that sustainability is risk mitigation, brand protection, and the maximization of your assets' lifecycle focus. I would position, don't take a political perspective on this. Take an economic perspective, okay? It's not a cost, it's a benefit, a bit of both, but mainly benefit. I would argue that each one of these was a sustainability project flaw. Short-term thinking. Are we okay with that? And for giggles, there's something called the scandal effect. If anyone had worked at those organizations during that issue, apparently you're going to lose 20% of your income for the rest of your life. You're blackballed. Another diagram for sustainability. I like how people, planet, bearable, planet, profit, viable, people, profit, equitable. Just like this slide. My intent with the next few slides, dealing with the SDGs, love that pen, is to demonstrate complexity and prioritization. Okay, just being aware of different interpretations and priorities. Okay, so there's an argument that the Sustainable Development Goals is the greatest project known to humankind. All right, so 2014, it was signed in, and 17 goals were ratified. An observation here, you can't excel at everything, okay? Just don't violate anything, okay? But you can't do everything. You don't have the time, the resources, the money, whatever, okay? You might want to pick a few things based on your country, your industry, your sector, okay, that you are already good at or that you can focus on. We helped with that one, responsible consumption and production. All right, so the SDGs have targets. The intent of this is to show it's all tied in, all right? If you do one thing, it helps support another, which helps to support another, all right? So there's a lot of integration between all these different points. That's the only purpose of this diagram, okay? Now, this is SDGs by company prioritization. PwC did this. Okay, so based on their assessment of companies, that's how they assessed each of the SDGs. Okay, so companies interpret the SDGs different. Okay, and another important point for the SDGs, governments are accountable for ensuring that these are done and reporting on. Okay, but many businesses realize it's good marketing and positioning to say that we're supporting this. Here's another one. So this is business, and that's citizens. Again, different perspectives. But you're going to want to know for your shareholders, for your consumers, all right, what's important to them. And I've got a slide a little later on to highlight that. Okay, but again, there's different perspectives in terms of what's important. SDGs by industry. Different industries, different focus, right? So energy, utilities and mining, financial services, industrial products, retail and consumer, anyway. Different perspectives, okay? Different priorities. Important to know this in terms of your competition and what you're focusing on. SDGs by country. Different countries are more evolved or are more mature than others. So Canada, yeah, we're pretty good. A few things we need to work on, all right? SDGs, country, business, and citizen priorities. Canada, US, all right? I'm putting an argument forward that you might, in certain situations, want to be aware or provide your organization or sponsor this information, which is accessible, so that they are aware of maybe where they should focus, okay? Certain benefits or focus areas for the project or projects that you're working on, okay? Easy, this is easy stuff to get. And in general, corporations get it, okay? We'll discuss this more in a sec. There are a lot of standards out there, all right? And sources of information. There's a lot of stuff. And again, it's multidisciplinary, all right? And one thing leads to another, and there's a lot of upselling and whatever else. Okay, so we do have a solution for this later on. All right, summary of the key points. Are we okay? Seeing general nodding of heads? Okay. All right, why we should care about sustainability. A few points here. Why this topic? Again, all of these are projects. There's an argument, project, product, but we're all doing projects, right? And that affects all of these things. Oil pipeline, IT, Coca-Cola, brands, whatever, all right? Everything we do affects this. August 19th, this year, for the first time, okay, a bunch of reasonably powerful characters completely changed their perspective, like 180 degrees, all right? It used to be the business of business is business, making money, all right? Major employers are investing in their workers and communities because they know it is the only way to be successful over the long term. That's a big shift. That's US, okay? That's huge changes, and we've seen that over the years. I'll make an observation. We were at COP21, the one in Paris, where all this was discussed. We went through the business stream, all right? The perception that a lot of people have is that it was the governments that positioned and forced this through. That was not what we saw. What we saw was big business telling the governments, you will do this. Keep in mind that was a few years ago, all right? Because our assets, our shares, our business is on the line. If you don't force us, we can't do it now because shareholders won't let us. Keep in mind that was a few years ago. You need to force us to do the right thing, okay? And that's now come along where they've changed that, so they're now actively advocating. Some observation here. So 1,000 CEOs, 100 countries, 25 industries, research 2007 to 2018. 89% say commitment to sustainability is translating into real impact in their industry. 87% believe the SDGs provide an opportunity to rethink approaches to sustainable value creation. Everywhere else on the planet, this isn't even a discussion point, as Greta commented in her tour of the Americas. It is only in the Americas that we're actually questioning this. This is the only place where it's really being debated. All right? So if you're an international company or you're selling internationally and you have consumers, organizations purchasing your product or wanting to use your services that want to be able to demonstrate that they're being sustainable and their suppliers are being sustainable and that the things that we're buying are sustainable and socially responsible, I think it's a benefit to pay some attention to this, okay? We recently did a study of something that I'll show you in a few minutes. So based on responses of 8,000 practitioners, executives, and academics, the feedback was 96% believed executives believe projects and project management are integral to sustainable development. 98% sustainability professionals believe projects and project management are integral to sustainable development. There were a number from the Americas, but the influence was more international. Models. I'm going to present a few of these quirky models just so that you understand and you can argue some of these points. So this is a neat thing that was done a couple years ago. So the Earth system, all of that. So sources of information, sources of thing, non-renewable stocks, regenerating stocks, flows, that becomes inputs to the human system, energy, materials, all right? We do something with that, and then we produce outputs, emissions, wastes, land use. And that has to go to a sink, garbage, goes somewhere. Are we okay with that as a model that makes sense, all right, for business and industry in general? We're seeing nodding of heads. Here's the key point. That's what it used to be. That's what it is now. We are maxing out the system. I don't think anyone will really argue that we're maxing out the system on all of these points. And I'll show a few slides just to reinforce some of these points. How many people are aware of Earth Overshoot Day? A few? All right. So this year was July 29th, 2019. At that point in time, we had used up all the renewable assets, natural resources that we had. Okay? We now require 1.75 Earths, which coincidentally we don't have, to maintain the current production and consumption. Okay? Canada actually isn't horrible on this. Some countries far more so. Okay? Again, what's the key point? We're utilizing more than we can. Okay? We need to change that perspective. This is done by a Canadian. Strongly suggest you have a look at that. This is an incredibly depressing website, but really cool. The guy who did this was Obama's climate crisis coordinator. Canada's really lucky. We have access to so much information in terms of weather and the models and the information that we have. He's been able to track from way back to however far in advance what's going to happen. It might be a thought for your supply chain, where your headquarters is, where you're dealing with people, where you're shipping to have an awareness of what the heck's going to be happening over the next few years. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on these things. Okay. Anthropogenic CO2. We're causing this. It's generally recognized. I think there's a recent article this week, 11,000 scientists signed a paper saying, yeah, it's happening. If you say no, you're not following the facts where things occur. Pollution, I think we can all agree that there's too much pollution that we're causing. We were talking about this earlier. More than 95% of the world's population breathe dangerous air. And interestingly enough, actually, inside is often worse because our air circulation systems aren't terribly good. All right? Single-use disposable plastic, that goes without saying. Yeah, that's depressing. Important point. So, consumer demand is growing. So what we can see is that interest in sustainable products is growing over time. Okay, so the consumers, this for them is important, and they're choosing who they're dealing with now. Okay? I thought this was really interesting. So take a look at, so that was Forever 21. The competitors, all of those companies filed for bankruptcy. Why? I had no idea about this. Why? Read their consumers wrong. And where's all the money going? Anyway, I thought this was a really interesting perspective in the fashion industry of whatever. Okay. I briefly mentioned this, but just to reinforce, all right? We are so good. I mean, we actually are really, really good, even if we don't pay the attention to it or focus or market or position it. But have a look at a few of these things. Renewable energy, hydro and nuclear, okay? We're not that much coal, we're not that much oil or gas, all right? So we can say that our products and services largely use renewable energy. Consumers and suppliers and people purchasing our products and services want to know that, okay? That's a differentiator for marketing. Our human rights, health and welfare, social safety, immigration, equality, waste management. I mean, our regulations are fantastic. We should be marketing and positioning this, all right? We've got legislation that we're doing this anyway, all right? So let's differentiate ourselves from other countries, environmentally friendly. All right, that's what we dealt with. How am I doing? I'm going to fly through this. There is an argument that for sustainability, if you look at it from a threat and opportunity perspective, it can really benefit the organization and the project, okay? Someone mentioned Machiavelli this morning. I always thought that was an interesting one. It's the people who did it last time that are going to be the biggest foe that you're dealing with, all right? I always like this one. You do have to make a choice, all right? You got to choose something. That's the modeling. I really like this one. Someone mentioned this this morning. Commonly used phrase is risk averse. Actually not risk averse, they're change averse. I obviously changed this for the North American market. What it says in the book is they're risk stupid. Management, executives, sponsors often make dumb decisions because of their lack of awareness of what risk management is. It is, I would argue, our position as project managers to provide this information so they can make informed decisions, okay? I really like this slide. So, for sustainability, we want to increase the capital benefits. We want to increase opportunity. We want to increase the brand. We want to reduce the costs, the threats, or any concerns of rumors or greenwashing. There are other things, but you see the point. This is what we can do with sustainability if we keep this in mind. Points we went through. All right, so what can we do? Mentioned a few things, okay? We are already there. We're already at the coalface. We have access to the information, all right? We can provide that to the sponsors in the organization, okay? We are uniquely positioned to provide that information so that they can make informed decisions. Again, they may say no. They may say, we're not going to deal with that now. That's okay. But at least we're communicating as professionals that information. Taking the scout perspective, seeing things, we're not arguing or just not dealing with things, okay? We're keeping an open mind, challenging preconceived notions. Taking a risk perspective so that we're dealing with the benefits. We're reducing risks, we're reducing costs, we're maximizing benefits, okay? And we're taking the asset lifecycle perspective into account, end to end, cradle to cradle. All right? Not just output. Okay? So we can demonstrate this is what we help you do. Okay? Making the sponsor and the organization look really good. That comes from ISO 21500. It's changed now, by the way, in 21502. There's an argument that is where sustainability sort of goes to die in projects. All right? So the governance, the business case, project priorities, support priorities, okay? That's where it goes to die. We can help change that, all right? Now, there's an argument, no, that's just the organization's responsibility. That's not our responsibility. I would argue that we're in a unique position to raise these. I mean, even if our project identified certain policies or something that the organization can steal, and it's easy to beg, borrow, and steal the stuff offline, all right, that it helps out. So I identified a bunch of sources of information. There's a lot, all right? Now, not selling anything, it's available for free online, all right? P5. People, planet, prosperity, product, process, all right? This is a model. We've categorized it based on people, planet, profit, and some other areas. We've gone through all of those references, okay? We've gone through all of that, and we've come up with a matrix. We've done SWOT analysis. We've done pestle analysis. Having a check over the internal and the external landscape to identify the threats and opportunities. What we are suggesting is you do the exact same thing here. In terms of the process, how you are managing the project, but also the product that you are evaluating. So, asking questions. Labor practices and decent work, employment and staffing, labor management, health and safety, training and education. Anyway, you go on. You just ask questions. And we do provide more background information on this so that you understand and examples of what we're talking about. But the point being, just ask questions about the threats and opportunities of this. You don't have to be an expert, all right? Just use that. Identify the threats and the opportunities, prioritize them, present them to the sponsor, the executive, and they can make an informed decision. And interestingly enough, they can either incorporate that into their reporting or tools and techniques or policies or whatever else. Here's an example. So the category, the subcategory, the element, reasoning why that's important. Is it process or output? Is it a threat or opportunity? What's the scoring that you put for it? Is there any legal regulation for Canada? Obviously that's important. And the proposed action. And the executive can decide. Do we care, yes or no? This is not a lot of work. I mean, we've done SWOT, we've done pestle, it's a similar sort of thing, all right? But it makes for a really fun conversation. I mean, this is what we do a lot, dealing with organizations. And a lot of times, you know, when you're having some of these facilitated sessions, you can just read the looks on people's face. You know, kill me now. Yeah, when's the coffee break? Get me out of here. They are so engaged on this stuff, mainly because, oh, I hadn't thought of that. You know, or who's responsible for that? Or have we done anything about that? You know, it opens up some really, now, you can't do everything, okay? You can't get 200% on everything, but you can choose what's important based on your consumers, your industry, the market, the country, whatever else. So, identify the topics, the analysis, and you can prepare a plan for it. Some supporting material. All right. What have we gone through? So, setting the stage, suggestion for being multidisciplinary. I'm hoping that you will include sustainability in your disciplines. How we perceive things differently, and that's okay. You know, how we read, react, okay? And just being aware that people respond differently. Scout versus warrior mindset. Some thoughts, you know, pluses for being in project management right now. And the unique position that we have for what we do. And by definition, 30%-ish of the world's GDP is spent on change. We're the ones who really are going to impact this stuff the most. I mean, how sustainable and socially responsible we are, it's kind of us, right? I mean, we have that, we own that, whether we want to or not. An overview of sustainability. Why we should care. Again, I really like that Forever 21. That was a recent article. Risk management, taking that perspective. And what can we do? I think that we have to recognize that a certain group of the population, they don't see the world any other way. Now, some of us are getting better, all right? I mentioned regulations and legislation. Canada, the UK, Australia, the Commonwealth countries, we're actually in pretty good position. All right, Scandinavia, I mean, I wish we could be Scandinavia. Again, it depends where you are. The issue, and one of the reasons I wanted to reinforce this is that there is this big argument. We're yelling at each other and we're not listening or debating. We've lost the ability to debate in the Americas because we perceive it, or many of us perceive it as a political left or right thing. And of course, you're defending your warrior group's position. That's why I was trying to reinforce, let's take a different outlook, perspective on this. Let's help our sponsor. Let's help our organizations perceive it and see it in a different way. Provide the sound bites or the models or the perspectives where maybe, oh, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. There was an issue, there were two governments, one in Europe, one in Asia Pacific, who brought us in. Their biggest issue, their challenge, was bringing on millennials. More specifically, bringing on millennials and keeping millennials. They were having a huge problem with it. One of the things that we advised them on is make sure that you identify those policies, sustainability policies, that are important to you. Okay? Recognize it, document it, publicize it. Huge difference within a year. Both bringing people on and keeping them there. A silly little thing, but it made a huge difference. Any other questions as I'm babbling on?
I just wanted to thank you so much because you converted me from the beginning to the end. I actually didn't see that. And my daughter is the one slapping me about this. So key takeaway, it's not really a question, is now my daughter might think project management is school. Right? Because God, what you do. But secondly, the thing I can do is post a standard I knew nothing about on our Yammer pages for government, but also for our templates and tools, either add it as just an add-on to the existing or as separate. Because we're government, we do like those templates.
And again, all of the stuff is online and free, so do what you want with it. I honestly think it helps out. Cookie cutter, Coles Notes, whatever approach to it. Any other questions? I think I'm running out of time. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Thank you.